Lastly, the names that were chosen at that meeting and presented at that final meeting were done so based on those guidelines that already exist at the board. The Hawaii board put together guidelines that specifically talk about how we include information from community members and how they are hierarchically graded, so to speak. And these are the 4 names that were given in the application process that explained what they were, where they came from and who they were, so that we could provide these 4 names as an option to the community to have further discussions. These are not necessarily the names that are going to be the ones that will be passed. We make it very clear, the board is not here to name anything. The board, the Hawaii board, is there to designate a name that the community is going to choose, hopefully. And what we mean by that is, by designating a name, we're putting it into that place name repository that the state maintains. And that's the designation we're talking about. There are other names that we can also include. For example, the term Fissure 8 should be considered a variant name, because if people were to go looking up Fissure 8, they'd find information about that particular feature. And that's the way that the US board works. They allow for variant names. So if some of these names the community chooses are important because they also have important cultural information, and they would like not necessarily for it to be the main official name, but to be considered as a variant name so that people can find information out about that, that would be something that the community would need to impress upon the PIG, who could then impress that upon the board so decisions can be made. And in this case, having a long PIG process works. Just a carryover from the previous meeting. But that's about where we are right now. Hoping that we can wrap up our report next month and get as much information as we can from our community this month, so that we can present this information at the next board meeting, which of course, as you guys all know, means they can't do anything with it until the following meeting. But what I'm hoping and praying will happen is that we can convene a full board meeting in Puna when the decision gets made, as they did on Maui when the Wailuku decision was made. But that's my prayer and my hope, because as you know, or if you don't know, the positions are volunteers, and so the travel is usually on their own dime if their departments cannot afford to get them here.
I did want to touch upon that very first meeting, and I was there with you and the rest of those in the permitted interaction group, and how to kind of try and pull out some of the stories and why those names were suggested was really a struggle. But now that more people have become mindful of it and what it looks like, and we saw it today in the testifier, how emotional some of that was. I'm hopeful that this longer permitted interaction process really does encourage that community engagement, because I also recognize there are others who are looking for naming of like all the features. We know that shoreline has changed, just in even some new features that have been developed along the shoreline because of that event. And I actually look forward, Renee, to seeing you, the Permitted Interaction Group, and the entire Geographical Naming Board here on Hawaii Island a whole lot more as we continue to walk and unpack so many of the stories that we heard during the event, and kind of doing that storytelling, which makes Hawaii so unique and so special. So I do look forward to you guys coming back and re-engaging the community, but then that next step of all the other features that we have now down in Puna. So thank you for bringing this forward, and so happy the council representative from the district has taken it over, because at that time there was just so much going on, and it really was a way to just channel that energy and focus it. So thank you for picking this up.
I too am curious about some of the stories. I have my own opinions and belief, but that's not my area. As far as the experience in the lands, and so for me, I'm curious about the stories that have crafted where they've come from. So, thank you, Chair. Yield.
Just a quick comment. Those are my favorite parts. The stories are my favorite parts. If I could get a grant to just go sit and talk to the people in Puna and have little like coffee talk table, or what would we do, Ava talk table type of things, then I would love to do that and just sit and listen. And if they would allow me to record the stories, I would love to do that and find a way to share it if they would allow that to happen also after talking with other community members. Because not all stories are meant to be shared outside a community or outside that kind of protocol, the story talking protocol. And so I'm still learning a lot about those processes, and I still feel like the community needs to be the ones, even if a person believes that they can share their knowledge, a community might say, yeah, that's good, we want to keep that one. So that's another thing, that even if a person wants to share, maybe the community should have an opportunity to say and talk with that person as to whether or not their story should be shared outside, because maybe the community has other information or resources that story might allow other people to come in and do something not so nice about. So I like the stories the best.
But I'm really glad to see the names. And this, I know that this name that was brought forward earlier, Ahu Aila'au, has a very unique meaning surrounding how that lava came out of the ground and who was present during that. And I remember hearing these stories as it was happening. So I'm really enjoying watching this name progression and knowing what came behind that during the eruption. So thank you. Mahalo.
It would be awesome if the full board could make it to Puna and provide the report. Councilmember Leloy and I, through amendments to Bill 12, we had carved out some money for outreach. So we can assist. I don't think any of those funds have been tapped, but I think it's really important for the board to be here and to formally present their recommendations and talk story with the community.
Okay, I think that's something that would coordination with
yes, we can talk offline about it, but I just wanted to make sure that we offered that up.
I'm sure they would appreciate that very much.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here. We have Auntie Donna Walker and I believe Auntie Kumu Mahealani and the other ladies outside if you have further questions for them. But thank you. Thank you for holding this space and allowing the community to elevate what is in their hearts and the various stories that really provide a lot of context for what makes Puna Puna. So thank you.